What's left in lame duck, the surprises and disappointments, plus a milestone in Lansing that could give Flint residents some hope, and we'll take you to the Detroit neighborhood in the path of the new international crossing, the buyouts, and the waiting game. Stay put. MiWeek starts right now.
Did you know Gordon Food Service was started by a 23-year-old entrepreneur as a butter and egg delivery business more than a century ago? In 1948, school teacher Gerard Wendell Hayworth borrowed $10,000 from his parents to start a woodworking operation in his family's garage. It's now Hayworth Incorporated. These are just some of the ways Michigan's pioneers started out as small companies with big ideas.
We are business leaders for Michigan. We are committed to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Funding is also provided by Delta.
Welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. Baby, it's cold outside, but that didn't stop the Q line from taking a test run in Detroit, Donald Trump from picking a CEO as Secretary of State, or lawmakers from changing up the end of the year agenda. We have a lot to get to tonight. Plus, we'll bring you a special report from the Delray neighborhood in Detroit and how the state is trying to secure land to build that new international crossing. So let's bring in our contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. And with that, gentlemen, we will start with the lame duck agenda. So the hot items that are off the agenda now is that voter ID bills and the expanding public records requests to the governor's office. But back on is now the energy bills that they're looking at, and also no-fault insurance. So what's going on there in Lansing? I love this last-minute flurry of activity, Nolan.
Yeah, they didn't get as much done as I think they hoped. They whiffed on most of the big items they brought up: the pension reform, the brownfield credits, the incentives, business incentives that business leaders for Michigan push. A lot of big things didn't get done. They're going to go into the night tonight on energy to try to see if they could get that piece done. If they do that, I think they will have accomplished something in lame duck. Otherwise, it's pretty much a bust.
Which is fine. Do you think that people have a little bit of eye rolling though when they see the legislature going till 4:30 in the morning and making this last minute push when they could have maybe done some of this stuff a little bit earlier?
Well, I mean, and again, it's this rushed effort to get these things passed because they feel less accountable for what they do because it's after the election. I mean, all of this is absurd. There's nothing on their agenda that has to get done by January 1st. I mean, it's sort of an artificial deadline that they've set because, again, that's when the new legislature takes its seats. All of this stuff, if it's important enough, I think can wait till the next year, and we can actually have a debate about it and maybe some hearings. Get people to shape the legislation in the way that it's
specifically
supposed to.
Biggest disappointment for you?
Well, I mean, I think all of it. I mean, it's like sorting through a trash heap. All of the stuff that they're doing is problematic because of the way that they're doing it. I mean, the voter ID bill is the worst, I think, of the lot, because there's really no need for that. I mean, it comes out of nowhere. It's just another punitive attempt at voter suppression. But the rest of it is just as bad in terms of substantive policymaking. There's nothing going on there that looks like regular lawmaking. And part of the reason that this stuff takes so long, too, holding the floor open for as long as they do and all this stuff, is because you have inexperienced people running these chambers.
That's exactly
Kevin
right.
Cotter and Arlen Minkoff do not know what they're doing.
Well, Minkoff's a much better,
than
leader
Cotter,
than Cotter, and maybe one of the better ones we've had in a while. But you're looking here at the one more negative impact of term limits. I agree, all of this stuff could wait to January, but it's a new legislature in January, so it's all got to be reintroduced, and it's all got to be debated again.
And they should have done it when they were not meeting for most of this year.
You've got to educate lawmakers again. I mean, the term limits has ruined effective lawmaking.
So what happened to your push for part-time
legislature,
back at it, Nolan?
We're back at it. We couldn't get it together for the 16, but we're back at it, looking at 18 and looking at putting together a study of what will work with a part-time legislature and what voters would accept in terms of extending term limits, which is the real objective here is to get term limits extended. And I think we can get it on 18. I think the people will support
It's
it.
a part-time legislature anyway. They have met,
Right.
what, 86 days of 2016? Some ungodly low
So you think you
number.
might as well
Yeah,
make it
well,
official?
don't
Well,
pay
and
'em
yet
for-
though they introduce about a bill a day.
Yeah,
It's
right.
all this pet peeve legislation. Anytime someone gets a
Self-dealing.
wild hair, they introduce a bill. That something goes wrong in their neighborhood, and I can introduce a bill to take care of that. It's not the way lawmaking should work. They should focus on priorities, and they usurp too much of what should be done in local communities.
This has become a really bad actor, the legislature here. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the Bridge Magazine piece this week about the amount of self-dealing that goes on. Legislators introducing bills to benefit themselves. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that in other states you go to prison for. I mean, the way we have allowed this branch of our government to just sort of run wild, and it's unmanaged, partially because of term limits, partially because there's no ethics rules, partially because they're not subject to FOIA, so we don't see what they're doing.
Another item that died in,
I
in
mean,
Mud
it's
Lake
crazy.
Duck.
It's the weakest ethics laws in the nation in Michigan, and there's no excuse for it. And they lobbyists shower them with money. You go sit in a bar in Lansing and you watch these lobbyists walk in with lawmakers on their arms. In other places, that's not okay. They've got to report that. Tickets, trips here, trips there, and they're all on a short-term schedule trying to get theirs, get out, get to their next job. And they do always looking ahead on how to benefit themselves and how to set themselves up for when they're done with the legislature.
A couple quick things I also want to get to of note this week. Ron Romney McDaniel's got essentially a thank you for delivering Michigan. You are now the head of the RNC. Stephen, what do you think about that?
It's good for Michigan. I mean, it's great to have somebody local in a position of that prominence. I'm not a fan of hers as party chair here. I think she's somebody who's really got has had a difficult time articulating points beyond the sort of usual talking points. I mean, it's really frustrating to interview her. This is not somebody who's thinking about what you're talking about. She's just reading off a script. But she did a good job delivering Michigan for the first time in 20-some years to Donald Trump. And again, it puts the state in the spotlight at the national level, which is never a bad thing.
Well, and beyond the presidential race, which was fairly remarkable, they lost very little. Republicans came into this thinking, gosh, the House is in play. We might lose our majority at the state levels. Didn't.
Right.
How many House seats did they lose?
They didn't lose any House seats,
I
don't think.
So that was a good job. She was responsible for the recruiting. She was responsible for assigning assets around the state. She impressed a lot of people for good reason. I think she's going to be a good national chair. And the question then becomes, who replaces her? I'm hearing this morning, Ron Weiser's out on the radio saying he wants to be the next chair. And if that's the case, that's a game changer for Michigan in 18.
All right.
Because he can raise a ton of money, and he's an excellent organizer,
Can
and
he
he
be
has
chair?
never lost. He was chair before. I mean,
But can he be chair and regent? I mean, he won that race at the university.
I mean, of course he can, and so.
Well, but if you were in the legislature and you were chair, you had to quit.
Well, it's not the same rules for this. I mean, believe me, he's not giving up that U of M seat.
All right. So another thing that caught my attention this week was that Lansing finally pulled out the last lead pipe, and this has been a 12-year process for the city of Lansing in removing all of their lead pipes in their water system, which got me thinking a little bit about Flint and the fact that it was about a year ago that national attention finally focused on Flint and caused quite a storm and then a lot of action here. But it feels like we're still not seeing a ton of action in terms of speeding up the process of replacing pipes or speeding up the process of getting that kind of funding or coordination, though, even though we know that the water quality is getting better, we are still not at
it's
a
really
good
slow.
point.
It's not I mean, the water is much, much better, and it's on its way. But in terms of replacing pipes, that's not a fast process. You mentioned Lansing just finished it after 12 years.
And a coordinated effort. I still feel that there's not real.
In a city that doesn't have the level of abandonment that you see in Flint.
Yeah,
So
right.
one of the things in Flint is how much of the infrastructure are you going to replace when it's infrastructure that was built for a much larger population that is now much smaller and probably likely to get smaller because of the water crisis? I mean, those are some of the things that I think would add to delays in terms of figuring out how to do it. But we did see Congress pass the bill to pay for it, or to begin paying for it. I think it's $200 million.
Yeah, Lansing did it for something like $45 million, and we're talking, you know, hundreds and hundreds of millions for Flint. They're not done with the mapping yet. They're getting a lot of help from U of M trying to figure out
Flint's a bigger city than Lansing too, though.
Yeah,
isn't
it is,
I mean,
but still, you know, it's not a hurry. Something you're going to do at a crisis speed. You got to map it out. You got to bid it out, and then start to work. It's a slow process.
All right, and finally, we have a CEO as a Secretary of State, and I know that people have been talking about Rex Tillerson's appointment.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, obviously I'm not a fan of.
Wait, what? You're not a fan?
Not a fan of the president-elect. I'm not a fan of the appointees. I think there is another level, though, of interest here, which is the idea of transactional diplomacy, which this president-elect seems to already be engaging in the way that he's dealing with foreign leaders, and this Secretary of State seems prone to that kind of approach as well, and that's a real change for the United States. I mean, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, that has not been the way we have conducted foreign policy in the past.
At least not above board. I mean, we did ship a plane
last
load
point.
of cash to Iran, but on this appointment, I mean, I'm a little concerned about his lack of diplomatic experience, but our approach to Russia has not worked. We are at a very dangerous point in our relationship. There's no communication between our two armies, so maybe bringing someone in who has had some experience and success with them is not a bad way to go.
All right, we're going to have to see that play out. All right, you know, for over 10 years, there's been a slow progress on a new international crossing to Canada. Things are finally starting to speed up, but tonight, as part of the Detroit Journalism Cooperative, we have a closer look at what residents in the Delray neighborhood of Detroit have been going through. They are living in the proposed footprint of the new Gordie Howe International Bridge. Some are still waiting on offers to buy them out. Others have a buyout but can't afford to stay in the city. And those who were left behind in Delray to live around the bridge have fears of more noise, more pollution, and more isolation.
They said that you never had to leave Delray. Anything you wanted, you could find here.
You had a major street where there was grocery stores and clothing stores and hardware stores and movie theaters.
The houses here used to be all beautiful. We used to have beautiful yards, flowers everywhere. It was gorgeous here. That's the only reason why we bought here in '81.
My father came from South Carolina and my mother came from Georgia. And they came and met and had a house over here for the last 72 years. They're both gone now.
Whoa, I think it's 1962. I had to be like 16, 17. But that's the house was right across the street.
The auto industry left. They closed Turnstead, they closed Fisher Body, Cadillac, then, crack, and then people started leaving.
So much has left Delray. People don't have reason to come here unless you live here or you're visiting friends or family. When they first were looking at locations for the bridge, they looked at several possibilities. This stretch of the river is the narrowest portion of river. It also had the most vacant, available, publicly owned land at the cheapest prices.
I started going to meetings in 2004. And in that time, we talk about the impacts the bridge is going to have once it comes. The impact it has had thus far has been profound.
And it slowly started getting like this because of too many broken promises.
How do you move forward in life when there's so much uncertainty as to what's going to happen to your life? You have people deferred maintenance on their house for a number of years because every few years they're told their house will be acquired, they'll move. There's not a lot of motivation to invest the time or effort into something you don't know you're going to have in another year.
It's dragging on because certain people that are not in favor of it, because there'll be too much competition for them, they figure. They keep putting a spoke in the wheel, so to speak. Isn't it really funny that one person in America can affect all of us here?
As you watch, like me, I had 5 neighbors when we started the process in 2004. By 2010, I was the only one on my block. You know, their homes that either left or the homes have been set on fire. So it affects your psyche. It really does.
There are lots of different things that have happened in Delray over these 10 years. You could watch the level of illegal dumping. Look at the dumped cement construction debris right in the middle of the street, right across from this children's recreation center. These are the kind of things wouldn't happen somewhere else. Wouldn't happen in, you know, a number of parts of Detroit.
It's almost like everybody's on hold. Any kind of investment, including federal funding to deal with blight, anything coming in to deal with poverty, anything coming into the city to kind of help it thrive from post-bankruptcy. Delray is not on the map when it comes to that investment because everybody's like, well, the bridge is coming. The bridge is coming. So the homes here, apartment buildings, all that will be gone. So everything to your right stays, but everything to your left here would be the plaza. And I don't think people realize there's going to be thousands of people left in Delray when this bridge gets built. They're not going to all leave. They can't. These are all going to go, all these houses. But this building is going to stay here, and literally I think outside of the doors of this place will be this massive interchange connection with about 10,000 trucks probably every day passing through. It's just...
My name is Mark Butler. I'm with Windsor Detroit Bridge Authority. It's a great pleasure to be here again today at historic Fort Wayne. U.S. property acquisition. MDOT is responsible for all property acquisitions in the U.S. A total of 638 land parcels are required for this project, and to date, MDOT has acquired or has control of in excess of 50% of these parcels. It's anticipated that all offers to businesses will be issued by December 31st, 2016.
We are really accelerating in terms of momentum. We just got out the RFP, the request for proposals, the other day, and that is a major project milestone. So we can choose the entity that's going to build, maintain, operate, and design the bridge. And the fact that we got that out the door is proof positive that this project is happening. It's happening just the way we planned it, and we're excited to keep the progress and the momentum going.
It's a community that's been here for years. We know what happened in Pole Town, we know what happened in Black Bottom, and we know what's happening here.
They want to come in this area and pay low prices to black homeowners and tell you like we have minimized your value throughout history. We cannot sit by and not question and deal with inequity wherever we find it.
30 grand for a house? You can't go to and live with it on that. Where you gonna go? Where you gonna go that's halfway decent for $30,000? Nowhere.
I'm not looking for fair market value. We're looking for fair value.
I can't talk to specifics. All I can tell you is they're treated the same way as everyone else. We have received generally a lot of positive feedback from the community, particularly the individual residents who believe that they're being treated equitably. They are getting fair value for their properties, and they're getting funds sufficient to relocate them to decent, safe, and sanitary housing.
It's all right to move because too many memories for me over here. You know, my husband passed away, then my 2 daughters passed away, and it's hard, so too many memories for me. So I'm gonna move on. The money for this house, I'm buying the house with. My neighbor across the street, she lives on East Court. I'm a house next to her. I'm gonna get that one.
According to MDOT, this is worth $35,000.
39.
39. For her to move in the city, she can't afford to move there because based on what she's going to have from MDOT to move, everything's going to be different.
Everything came just a little bit too late. They were meeting, but wasn't doing anything. And you take 8 years of meeting, telling you we're moving, we're going to take your place, but yet they're not doing anything. It's like a force out. Most of the people that within these couple of blocks, they've talked to me. They're not offering anything else. It didn't help. I lost my husband last year, so it's like now I'm just like a little bit more emotional right now because I've had the death of my husband. Now you're taking my house, and it's just a little much. Sometimes my day don't go good.
Might be a lot of noise, you know?
For the rest of the community, we're really talking about a protected community boundary. Not having industry encroach so much that it really disrupts everybody's daily lives here. And unless or until there are plans to buy the community out, that's really what we're fighting for as a community, as quality of life improvements. That Campbellside Street, that's actually where trucks are going to exit for local truck traffic. So semi-trucks would be driving all day long in front of some people's houses.
They're going to build some kind of wall. They call it a soundproof wall, which I don't believe will help much. We have our children here. It's going to be during nighttime, all this noise. I said there's such very few houses here. They should really consider buying us off so that we can go to a better place to live.
We have received questions and statements of concern that those folks believe that they too should be bought out, and that's something that we're discussing. At this point, it's something that we're not talking about publicly. But we understand it's an issue. We're concerned about the issue, particularly outside the footprint, that any adverse impacts from this project are either avoided or fully mitigated.
That's my sister's house. That's my uncle and auntie house. That's my house. That's my cousin's house right there. And that's my uncle's house. Yeah, all this is gone, man. Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad that it finally happened before I, kicked off. But yeah, I'm glad they, getting it together.
This is a new beginning. It's yeah, it's change, and change is what you make of it, right, Ma?
That's right. Yeah. If you don't change, they'll run right over you, and you just have to get knocked out a few times. So yeah, I'm ready.
You're not taking that mirror, are you?
Yeah, I am. And I'm taking that one too.
Well, it is what it is, but we have to go where we can afford. We live close to downtown, Corktown, Woodbridge. We can't afford to live here anymore. I wanted to move to Lincoln Park. I thought about it. It gave it a lot of consideration, and I just followed my heart, and I went to where I wanted to be. I have my new house, and it's all paid for. I have no mortgage. All I gotta do is pay the insurance and the taxes. Hey, we're gonna make the most of it. That's what we do. It's bittersweet because we're glad to be leaving, but this is our history. This is our home. They're gonna board the place up, have security watch it 24/7, and then they'll tear it down.
About half the residents have struck deals to sell their homes, and it's estimated about half of those are leaving Detroit. MDOT expects to have all of its offers out by the end of this year, and if progress continues, the bridge could open by 2022. And that's going to do it for MiWeek. To connect with more reports from the Detroit Journalism Cooperative, go to our website, myweek.org, for the link. Plus, you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm Christy McDonald. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, have a great night. We'll see you next time.